productivity coach, inspirational speaker, best-selling author, and we're really glad to have her here talking about her 3x3 meditation and how to create transformation in these bite-sized pieces. Hey, are you ready to launch?
I am ready to launch.
All right. We're so grateful that you're here because this is something that we all think about. I think we all kind of struggle with, like, oh, I know all the things I need to do to get to where I want to be, but I can do them later, or I don't have time right now. And we really want to explore with you how transformation doesn't have to be this big daunting thing. So let's talk about that. What do you recommend for people to start their own journey of transformation right away?
Well, I think the biggest factor, for me, meditation saved my life. And when I first started meditating, I was suicidal. I was alcoholic. I had been in major clinical depression for more than 10 years. And I couldn't live with alcohol. I couldn't live without it. And I didn't know if I wanted to live or die. Like, it was such a bad place to be in. And when I first started meditating, my instruction was to sit still for 20 minutes in the morning and focus on my breath. But I was just physically, mentally, emotionally incapable of doing anything near that. So I would sit for 3 minutes at a time, which was what worked for me. And I could do that several times a day to kind of make 20 minutes total. I would sit for 6 or 7 times a day. And from that little practice, these little 3-minute breaks, and I didn't believe in any kind of transformation. At that point, I'd never heard of law of attraction. I didn't know what any of this stuff was. I didn't believe in God. All I was doing was I was just kind of sitting in this place of like, I cannot figure it out. But if there's an answer out there, I'm open to it. It was like this open kind of willingness in a place of desperation. And from that space, just in these little 3 minutes, little insights were born. I had experiences in higher consciousness, and it was like blissful, grounded, amazing. And from that space, I feel like I know a lot about neuroscience. And when I wrote my book, I interviewed Dr. Bruce Lipton, who's an amazing neuroscientist.
We've had him on the show, and that was one of our favorites. We love him.
He's amazing. Him and Jack Canfield are like my...
We've had Jack on the show too.
He was the one that first told me that I could write a book and stood behind me as I did it. But anyway, with people that knew what they were talking about, knew what they were doing, to tell me and to back up and to explain to me how these short bursts of focused meditation several times a day literally rewire you from the inside out. The cells of my body are different. My thought patterns are different. I'm sure if you took a scan of my brain back then and a scan of my brain now, it would be totally different. So understanding that it's not just a woo-woo out there, oh, happy la la, that sort of thing. It's like a real grounded, practical way to transform your life. And I tell you that I hit rock bottom, not because that's something that everybody has to do, but to say, like, I was in that place and transformation at the deepest level happened for me. So imagine what it could do for you.
Love it. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of the practical steps, like things that we can do on a daily basis to incorporate meditation and transformation into our lives.
Absolutely. Well, whenever I used to try to take on a new habit or a new practice, whether this didn't happen to me with meditation, but it could be with other people. You want to join the gym, you want to take on a different eating habit, you want to get yourself healthier, something like that. Like, we have this little bit of a New Year's resolution attitude about it. And we think, okay, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to discipline myself. I've got the willpower. I can do this. And we have this kind of like white knuckle willpower type of pull yourself up by the bootstraps attitude. And the way that my transformation happened was exactly the opposite of that. So I want to help people understand to let go of the overwhelmingness of it. Don't think of it as like, oh my gosh, I have to transform my life all at once, like this New Year's resolution thing. Just commit to playing full out with the new practice for 7 days at a time. Because if you string together 7 days and then 14 and then up to 21 and 28, that's when patterns really start happening. And that's when I have felt it's right at the 2.5 week mark for me, where my reality, my outer reality, whether it's my body, my relationships, my financial situation, when I'm spending I call it 3x3 meditation, 3 minutes, 3 times a day, when I spend that in a specific focus for as little as about 2.5 weeks, that's about the amount of time when my outer reality shifts. And so to bring it down in a practical way, like I always tell people, put reminders in your phone because you think you're going to remember to do it. And you're not, you're going to forget, and it's going to be 8 o'clock at night. You're going to be too tired. So putting reminders in your phone is a great way to start. And setting a timer so you're not kind of peaking during the meditation time. Setting a timer for 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever time feels suitable for you. And then during that meditation time, like when you're playing full out, commit to a practice, but just commit to playing full out for those 7 days. So if you want to do 3 times a day or once a day in the morning, whatever, just commit to playing full out for those 7 days. And the reason that that's so powerful is because a lot of people we start out with a lot of steam and we get to, like day 3, day 4, and it's like, maybe I'll just kind of skip it, or I don't really have that. We start out strong and then we sort of, peter out a little bit. But if you tell yourself, I'm only doing this for 7 days, and you get to the 3 or 4 day mark and you feel, a little bit of waning of the energy, you can remind yourself, I'm only doing this for 7 days. It's okay. Like I can commit and bring myself to doing this for 3 or 4 more days and stay through it. And then in terms of what to do in the meditation itself for those couple of minutes, a lot of times, like I call the first 7 to 14 days, sometimes even the first 21 days, it's like a practice of weeding the garden. Because so many times we have negative thoughts. Like say that we have a negative thought about, oh, I'm never going to get out of debt, or, oh, I'm never going to lose this weight. And we've had that thought.
I wanted to say something too
Sorry.
about the small incremental ways of doing a goal, because that's really powerful. A lot of people, when I've talked to fitness experts over at the gym, I'm a big believer in health and going to the gym. I absolutely love it. And I talk to the guys at the gym a lot, and I asked, I've talked to them about like New Year's resolutions and how many people start coming in, and they told me that memberships skyrocket. At the new year, that's when you need to be at the gym if you work there, because you're going to sell memberships, you're going to sell packages, and every single one of them, without a doubt, every single trainer I've ever talked to has told me, the people will start coming in for maybe the first few weeks, first month or two even of the new year. And then after that, you don't really see those people anymore, but they've bought, these programs and packages, but they just kind of seem to disappear. And I think the big thing about it is that we make these goals and we think, you know what, I'm going to lose 30, 40, 60, I'm going to lose 100 pounds or whatever it is that, people have these goals, and make them so big that they're daunting. And then they've been working out for a couple of weeks and they're like, I lost a pound. Like, how am I going to get to that 100 pounds, and then that brings me, kind of full circle, or kind of close to full circle here, to something I read by Tim Ferriss, where, he was looking at research and goal setting stuff. And what he noticed, or what he read in some of the studies, is that when people set really small goals and they're able to reach those goals, there's a lot more momentum. So instead of 100 pounds, when people say, I'm going to lose 3 pounds, they reach that goal. And so then they go, well, I'm going to lose 6, and they reach that goal. But what a lot of us tend to do is, I heard that Dr. Eben Alexander, one of our guests, he meditates 2 hours a day. So we might hear that and go, and I know this is something I kind of thought about after our interviews. I went, well, I should meditate for like an hour. I mean, that guy's doing 2. How powerful would it be if I started doing, 2 hours? But I'll break it to an hour. But that's still for me like a lot. Like, right now I'm doing 10 minutes a day, and it's fantastic. I have a little app on my phone. I have a reminder that pops up every morning, and that's what I do. And I've made it simple, and that's what I recommend to people. So for me, a 10-minute meditation is fantastic. I have done full, like 8-9 hour day-long meditation sessions, but those were at special retreats. This isn't like a regular lifestyle kind of thing for me. So I really think setting these short goals is a way to go.
Oh, I love it. I love that you've had that experience too. It's awesome. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to hear a little bit more about these real bite-sized pieces, like one practical thing that we can do right now.
Okay, great. So where I was kind of going with the whole meditation, one thing that we can do, first of all, if it feels like you have no time to meditate, that's an indicator that meditation needs to be in your life, because we have these hectic, stressful lives. And so even if it feels like, oh my gosh, 3 minutes is too much, or even 1 minute is too much, we can find that's something that we can do wherever we are. We can be out with a group of people. We can be sitting in a meeting. We can be on a phone call. We can be doing a number of things, washing the dishes, cooking dinner, and be able to, as we're in that activity, take 3 deep breaths and just feel the warmth in the area around our heart expand and relax, So sometimes it can be something that simple that can get you there. And a lot of times I think something like a mantra or a visual or a phrase or a word can really help ground people. I have a couple clients that wear like a bracelet or a necklace, a charm that when they grab onto that, that's their anchor to be able to center into that place inside of themselves. That's something that they can do. And then, like getting up 5 or 10 minutes earlier or going to bed 5 or 10 minutes later. It doesn't have to be a huge commitment of time, but just to take that time, the beginning, middle, and end of the day. I feel we nourish our bodies 3 times a day. Let's nourish our souls 3 times a day. So those are some little tiny things that you can bring into your everyday life that really won't impact you in terms of your time, but can really make a huge difference in the way that you feel and the way that you are in the world around you.
Absolutely agree. I mean, and just the power of 3 deep breaths is amazing. So thank you for reminding us all to do that. Before we close out today, what is the last thing that you want to make sure the audience, the Thriving Launchers, walk away with?
I think one of the most important things that I feel like when I was in my lowest point, I needed to hear, but it was hard for me to hear at that time, was that there are so many people out there willing to help and willing to hold the lanterns for us and willing to, bring us to the next level. If we will just let ourselves be guided, let ourselves seek that, let ourselves be open to that, let ourselves be vulnerable, so that when we can hold hope that somebody out there gets it, somebody out there understands where we are, and that transformation does not have to be something that's hard and daunting. It can happen in these short little bursts, because one builds on another and builds on another. Like picture termites taking down a whole big house. It's like these little tiny things have this power to take down a big structure. And that can be these short bursts of meditation can take down huge structures of negative programming. It's so incredibly powerful, just these little bits, a couple minutes here and a couple minutes there at a time.
When I was trying to get over my social anxiety, it felt like such a daunting practice. It felt like an exercise, I guess, for me, because it was an exercise of coming out of my shell. It was an exercise of overcoming social anxiety. And one of the exercises that I did, it lasted about maybe 2 or 3 minutes tops. I actually got it to a point where it was really only more like 1 minute at the most. And what I would do is I would just sit down and I would think about an emotion that I wanted to experience more often. So for me, or a feeling, right? So I wanted to feel more at peace. And I would think of a time in my life when I felt that really powerfully. In my life, meditation and yoga is where I find the most sense of calmness. So I put myself in the space where I was at my yoga practice, and I have a very particular memory of laying there when you're laying down on your back and just feeling this kind of like echoing laughter surging through my whole body. It was like something very beautiful had woken up inside me. And so every night before I went to bed, I would recall that memory, just close my eyes, breathe in, recall the memory, feel it. And as soon as I felt it pretty good, that was it. I just breathe, just breathe a couple of breaths, feel the emotion, feel the feeling of being really relaxed, breathe out, open my eyes, go to bed. I'd wake up in the morning. I'd think about that time I was in yoga, or I might think about it sometime that I was doing something else that was really peaceful. But I generally had like 2 or 3 memories. It wasn't like I'm always searching for a new memory or a different one, or I kept it very simple. And I would recall the memory, breathe in, and then I would breathe out, and that was it. Just, 30 seconds to a minute every single day. And after a month, my calmness and the shifts that I had experienced around social anxiety shifted dramatically. And within 30 days, I anchored something very powerful within myself that I can still call on to this day, that if I call that memory, do the breath in that particular way, I can shift my whole physiology.
I believe it. That's amazing. Really powerful. Really, really great.
Dina, it's been a pleasure to have you here on the show. Thank you so much for joining us here on Thriving Launch. You gave us some really great practical advice, and you also gave us a good reminder that goals really start one bite at a time, and that if we can make them simple, then we're more likely to build the momentum to keep stacking and make the goals bigger and bigger. But, big results come from a bunch of small things put together. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Totally a joy.
You've been listening to the Thriving Launch podcast. For books and resources related to today's episode, make sure to head over to thrivinglaunch.com. We'll see you there.